Here are 3 ways to work with your players as a DM. Sometimes I see people have this sentiment where they think the game is the dungeon master versus the players. And I've seen both sides think this way. Whether you are the DM or a player, the game isn't you versus them. It's collaborative. The players interact with the world through the DM, so it's the DM's job to portray everything that comes with that, whether it's helpful or hurtful to the party. So when the DM and the players are talking to each other about what's happening and what they're trying to do, everything gets in sync, and there should be much less friction. For example, something I do at the end of a session is ask the players what they're thinking about trying or planning for the next session, or even several sessions down the road. As the DM, it's not my job to take what they tell me and the next session be like,
"Aha! Now I know your stupid plan and will be thwarting it."
No. What I'm going to do is prepare NPCs or settings or encounters for what the players want to do. Now, I won't be caught off guard by some wacky, wild idea that a player has, and also, the player gets to try to do the thing that they want to do. I also think it's important to ask your players not just what they're trying to do, but why they're trying to do something. When you know their intentions and the context that goes with it, that's when everyone's on the same wavelength and you can start getting creative. For example, let's say your player tells you that next session, they want to break into the magic item shop and steal the magic sword they saw. You ask them why, and they tell you it's because they want a magic sword, not necessarily that magic sword from the shop. So now, as the DM, you could come up with some other magic sword their character might have heard of and can go on an epic quest to retrieve. Now they have the option of being a jerk and stealing a sword, or going on a journey for a different sword. Depending on which option they choose, that can be a character-defining moment, all because you asked why. Look, honestly, I understand the DMs that have ideas for this huge epic story they want to tell where the players go to this thing, and then that thing, and then another thing in a specific order, and you mean well because you have all these cool ideas and moments in your head, but that can be boring for the players because it feels like they're playing a book instead of a game. Remember, this is supposed to be collaborative. Your game can absolutely be linear with a central story, but you need to leave room for the players to have their own ideas and agency. It's a tough line to walk, I'll admit, but in my opinion, you'll get a much better game that way. Something I do is to think of cool individual set pieces, maybe a boss fight or a dungeon, and try to fit that into the story depending on what choices the players are making. And if it's a big event, then I try to find ways to connect it to previous things, and also ways it could connect to more things in the future. I think having a vague outline of potential events can be useful, and it's something that I always have running in my head, but the key is to keep these events vague. And what I mean by that is to not get too invested and specific with the details of the plot or the encounter until the party is actually close to interacting with those things. Think of it this way. If you have an idea for a badass dragon fight, but it requires the party to go through door A, then door A too, then you're screwed when the party chooses door B at the start. Learn to be flexible with the choices the players make. It's okay to nudge them in a general direction with plot hooks and hints, but you don't want to just say, no, you can't pick door B, you have to pick door A, and then railroad them straight to the badass dragon fight. Use the player's agency to your advantage. Don't fight against it. This game heavily encourages improv, so it's important to know both how and when to do it. I think a lot of people have heard of the yes and rule for improv, where when someone else does or says something or has an idea, the next person accepts and acknowledges the action, the yes part, and then adds on to it and expands it, the and part. As DMs, we use this as a way to show that the player's actions have consequences, good or bad. A character walks up to a guard and insults them. As the DM, we acknowledge and expand on that player's action by having the guard react accordingly. Maybe the guard insults the character back, or maybe they get into a fight. However, there's an opposite form of this called no, but this isn't the type of no that removes player agency. It's a no to set boundaries. Again, the players interact with the world through the DM, so you probably know the world and the setting better than anyone else at the table. You have all the context and know what's going on with everything. Each of the players has their own vision and sees the world in their own way, so it's your job as the DM to make sure everyone's on the same page. For example, going back to no but, let's say a player wants to jump across a large ravine. You, as the DM, know that this ravine would be literally impossible for them to jump across normally, but maybe the player doesn't understand that, or misinterpreted the rules. In my game, I would tell the player that their character would know that this ravine is way too big to jump across. The no, but then maybe hint at potential solutions, like how they have some rope or a wizard. The but. In that specific instance, I kept the player's intent in mind and shut down a method rather than the entire idea. The player can probably cross the ravine, just not that specific way. And I think that's the key takeaway from all of this. Collaborate with your players about what they want to do and why, and then work with them for how they're going to do it.